Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn and my channel is Making with Marilyn. If this is your first time here, welcome. If it's not, thanks for coming back. In today's video, I'm going to use Embrilliance software and I'm going to show you how I designed this simple applique. Let's just jump on into the project. I'll meet you at the computer. Now that we're on the computer, I'm going to go ahead and open my Embrilliance software. You can see when I open the software, it's defaulting to this hoop size. This is almost 6 inches by almost 10 inches. For today's project, we're going to use a smaller hoop because I'm going to use a smaller piece of fabric. So to change my hoop size, I'm going to go right up here where it says Embrilliance. I'll click on that and I'll go down to Settings. Now the first thing that you see under Environment is hoops. I have mine set to Husqvarna hoops because that's the machine I use. Right now it was set to 240 millimeters by 150 millimeters. That's the last hoop size I used. I'm going to go right up here to the 120 millimeter by 120 millimeter, click on it, and then I'll say OK. What I'm going to show you today are the steps that I use in Embrilliance to make an applique design. I'm going to applique the letter M since my name starts with an M. If you're familiar with what applique is, you are going to totally understand all of these steps. But I want to take just a minute to explain the process so that those that aren't familiar understand the context before we get into the video. So if you're doing an applique project, you're going to hoop your stabilizer and your base fabric. So if you're appliquing on a shirt, your shirt would be your base fabric. After you've hooped your stabilizer and your base fabric, the first thing that you're going to do is have your machine put down a placement stitch or a position stitch. That lets you know exactly where to put your top fabric. Once you've placed your fabric on top, you move on to your second set of stitches. That is your tack down or your material stitch. Once you've run those stitches, then you can go ahead and cut away the excess fabric that's outside those stitches. Then you're ready for your third and final set of stitches, and that's to run your border stitches. So we had 3 steps: your position or placement stitch, your tack down or material stitch, and then your final stitches. Not everyone uses all 3 of those steps. And in fact, my Embrilliance software actually skips over step 2. Now you might wonder, why would it skip over step 2? Well, that's because some people actually cut their fabric ahead of time on a Cricut, a Silhouette, or another cutter, so they don't need that second step. But in today's video, we're going to use all 3 steps. Adding step 2 in Embrilliance is super easy. To make an applique design in Embrilliance, you're going to start right up here on the Create Designs feature. This is a Stitch Artist Level 1 feature. I'll click on that, and that opens up a lot of additional features to you. I'm going to applique an M. So I'm going to go right over here. This is the Add True Type Art feature, and I'm going to click on that. Before I do though, notice you could bring in an image or a vector file, so an SVG, and you could use those as your applique base also. But today I'm going to do an M. I'm going to click on this, and then that allows me to bring in an M from any of my system fonts. Now the last font that I used here was Amelia. That's not what I want. Today I want to use just a nice bold font. So I'll click on this up and down arrow, I'll change it to Arial Black, and now let's go ahead and type an M down here. It's going to be a capital M. Once I've done that, I'll click OK. You can see the M show up right here. Let's make it larger. You can make it larger by dragging the corners. That makes it where the proportions stay as they are. If you want to change the height without affecting the width, you can drag from the top or the bottom square. If you want to change the width without affecting the height, you can drag on the left or the right square. Alright, let's make it just a little bit taller. Now if you want to move this around, you move your cursor until that hand shows up on the green square, and then you can move your image to wherever you want it. Now this next step is something you can do now. You can do it in the middle of your design, or you can do it right before you save it. But I like to design in the middle. So with my M selected, I'm going to go up to Utility and click on Center in Hoop. Now that I have the M the size I want it, I'm ready to add the Appliqué feature. With the M selected, I'll go up here to my various stitches, and I'm going to select this fourth one over. Notice when I hover over it, it says Digitize and Appliqué. Let's go ahead and click on that. Now these border stitches are not what I want, but that is easy to fix. With it still selected, I can click on this down arrow, and I could click on the blanket stitch. I could click on the zigzag stitch, and that's getting closer to what I want. For today, I want the satin stitch. All right, let me click off of it so you can see it just a little bit better. If I click back on it, I can use some of these other settings as well. Now, density is how close together you want your stitches. I can click on this slider, and I can move it up or down. Let me click off of it so you can see it better. I don't really like that look. I like it to be really dense. Let me click on it, and I'm going to slide this back down to 4. I'll slide this all the way down to 4, and now it's very dense. Okay, let me click on it again. I'm fine with 5, so I'll slide it up. Now, instead of using the slider, if you want to, you can just put values in here, and you can change it that way. Now that we've talked about density, let's talk about stitch width. Stitch width is how wide you want your stitch from left to right, or on the bottom or the top, how tall you want your stitch. So we're going to click back on it. Just like last time, we're going to slide this to look at it. That made it really wide. Dragging it down to 1 makes it very narrow. We're going to stick with a 3. Now remember when I talked about the 3 types of stitches in your applique? The first stitch was a position or placement stitch. This is defaulted to where that's already checked on. Remember, the second set of stitches was a tack down or a material stitch. In Embrilliance, mine is defaulted to not include that. So if you want that second step, which I do, you click right here on Material. Now we're ready to see how this would stitch out. Let me go ahead and click off of it, and you can see the 3 colors of thread that it defaulted to for our 3 steps. I want to show you the stitch simulator. That shows me how all 3 of these stitch out. But since these 2 colors are very similar, let me go ahead and change that second one to something brighter. I love that color, so we'll click on it and I'll say OK. Now let me back up. I'm going to use 1 color of thread, and that thread is going to be black for my placement or position stitch, as well as my tack down or my material stitch, as well as my satin border. However, in an applique design, you want these to be different colors because having them different colors will tell your machine to stop between each of the 3 types of stitches. Remember, you're doing things between each of the steps. You're adding your top fabric on after the first step, and you're cutting away the excess fabric after your second step. So you want there to be a stop between all those steps. All right, now let's look at the stitch simulator. This icon is the stitch simulator. Let me go ahead and click on it. Notice here, these colors correspond to your thread here. So as I run this simulator, you're going to see that the steps coordinate with those colors. You can run it from this left side, or if you want to do it stitch by stitch, you can go to the right side. I'll show you those here in just a minute. Let's go ahead and start running it. So I click on play, and you can see right now it's laying down my placement or my position stitch. If you want to speed that up, you can slide this to the right, or you can slow it down by sliding it left. All right, I went ahead and paused it. I want to show you. Over on this right side, you can move it 1 stitch at a time. So here's our placement stitch or our position stitch. Let's continue to run this, and now you're going to see the tack down stitch. We'll go ahead and pause it again, and we'll get it caught up doing one stitch at a time. Now we're ready for the last stitch, and that's the satin border, so we'll click the play button. Now first it's going around with just a simple run stitch. Let me go ahead and speed this up a little bit. Then after the run stitches, you have this zigzag type of stitch. After that, it appears to lay down a top stitch. And then finally, it's adding in your satin border. So basically, it is just building up your stitches so that you get a nice result. I'm happy with this M, so now I'm going to save this design. You go to File, Save As. Notice it says Stitch and Working. It's going to save two files. It's going to save your stitch file. That's what you would move to your embroidery machine. It's also going to save a working file so that if you want to change it up later, you can. So I'll say Save As, and then I'm going to call it Appliqué M. Notice I have it saving with the HUS extension because I'm using Husqvarna. Now my machine will use other extensions, and there are a lot of other extensions available to you, but I'm going to use the HUS. I'll say Save. Now I'm ready to stitch this out. I hope that this video has been helpful to you, or you just enjoyed watching it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. I will be doing more Embrilliance videos, so if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. After you subscribe, be sure and click on that bell and then select the all notifications. That way YouTube lets you know anytime I upload new content. Thanks again for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next video.